and I'm here with my friend Anna Andrews. Anna is with Uplift Mighty Preparatory Schools. If you haven't heard of them, we have 10 high schools in the DFW area, and I'm going to pass it over to you, Anna, and let you talk a little bit more about what you do and Uplift Mighty.
Sure. Good morning, everybody. And Kristen, thank you for having me on. So I am currently an assistant principal with one of our high schools in the DFW area. My specific role, though, is to be the dean over our college career and readiness program. So basically that means I'm responsible for getting all of our senior class into a proper college or career pathway that will serve them best in their future.
Awesome. Yeah. And we are going to talk today about the student's personal statement and what that is, what that means, what are the best practices so that you can help your student figure that out and or just be there to help them when they're asking you for help. So Anna, tell us a little bit about the personal statement. Why is it important? All the good things that go along with it.
Yeah, so a personal statement can also be called a college essay, and it is a really important component of most college applications. Personal statements paired with the rest of your student's application are used to communicate to colleges and universities who your student is and why they actually deserve to attend the institution that they're applying to.
Now, is this a resume? Is it an essay? Give us a little definition about what does it mean? What's a personal statement?
Right. So the really cool thing about a personal statement is that it could really be both. So it's important to know who you are as a person and be able to use that information and post either at the top of a resume, or it can also be used and turned into an essay for college enrollment.
Okay, well, and I'm a huge fan, being a Gallup certified strengths coach, on knowing yourself and understanding, more about you. So on any college applications, any, resumes, et cetera, anything that, in your essays, that they can speak a little bit about what makes them special and who they truly are. So I love that. And it really plays into what I do as well with students, which is, helping them understand their strengths and what they bring to the party. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that putting in some strengths, or especially if students have already taken Clifton strengths, and finding a way for them to kind of mix and match their Clifton strengths into their personal statements, college essays, that can really be helpful. I think also another really important aspect to personal statements is knowing your audience, or knowing who and what you're applying to. So doing your research about the institutions that you are looking up their values or their mission statements, and really figuring out how you can interweave some of their beliefs into your college essays really helps put your student's application towards the top of the list.
So would you say then, Anna, can you reuse your personal statement, or do you have to change every one of them?
Yeah, so you can actually reuse your personal statement. So this is fantastic. Personal statements are commonly used and known, but specifically, personal statements are asked for inside of a college application platform called the Common Application. If you've never heard of this application, it has 915 colleges and universities that use this platform to have students apply to colleges. Some of these colleges are in Europe. Most of them are in the United States. And so every year they come out with a set of new prompts that they ask students. And inside of that portal, the universities kind of have a deal to pick one or two of the 7 examples that the Common Application is using. So even if you're applying to 15 universities inside this portal, if you actually spend the time with your students to sit down and write the 7 examples, they're interchangeable and usable depending on which ones the specific college is asking you to answer.
Okay, so you're really kind of doing some prep work before getting your examples and then deciding based on what the college is about, what would be best to use that? Okay, that's good to know. Anna's been doing this, working with students for 7 years. So she has a lot of great knowledge in this. So if you're in the chat, listening to us, please ask her questions. She's here for that. If you're listening later, feel free. I'm going to be tagging Anna. If you've got questions after the fact and you're listening to us later on today or next week or next month, please put your questions into the chat and we'll make sure to answer those for you. So, Anna, what else do we need to know?
Yeah, so I would definitely say that something that you can do to help your students prepare for college application season is kind of walk them through or talk them through some reflective practices around either lifelong lessons that they have learned or reflections about some difficult times in their lives. A lot of times, essays focus in on a time when a student went through something difficult and they asked them, how did you come out of that situation? What did you learn? How did you feel like you grew in that? What would you do better next time, to get a feel of the student's personality or characteristics as, they read their personal essay. So definitely asking them questions and reflective questions about an experience or time. Some of those can include helping your students list a person or event, describing the experience, giving an example of something exciting or interesting inside of that experience, having them list out how they were challenged, what they learned, and how does this connect with college plans.
I've got a big question for you around that. Are there certain subjects that they should steer away from talking about?
So, I would say no, because the university really wants to get to know them as much as they can through this essay. I would say that it's really important that your student stays focused on the question being asked, right? Mm-hmm. It's kind of like these prompts in the ACT or the SAT. They're really looking for the answer to the specific question. So making sure that your student stays really focused and that everything they're writing does answer the question fully. But I would say that there is no wrong answer. It's about your student. It's about their personal experiences. It's about their personal perspectives in life. And it really, asks some broad questions kind of about how they come out on the other end of adversity. And so I do have some example questions that, I can read from the common application, and I can also post those in the chat after this, but just to give you an example of the type of questions universities ask.
Oh, that'd be really helpful for our listeners.
Yeah, so the questions from the common application for this application season of the 2020-21 school year. So the first one says, some students have a background, identity, interest, or talent that is so meaningful, they believe their application would be incomplete without it. If this sounds like you, then please share your story. So there's a first example. Okay. And the second example is, the lessons we take from obstacles we encounter can be fundamental to later success. Recount a time when you faced a challenge, setback, or failure. How did it affect you, and what did you learn from the experience?
Got it. Now, I will tell you, I have heard like some of the essay coaches talking about topics that may come up a lot, that they might want to avoid talking about, things like being cut from a team or their mission trip and that kind of stuff. How do they stand out? How do they, write something that is meaningful that a college is going to look at and go, wow, I haven't heard that before?
So that's a really good question, right? I think, especially in the days and times we're living in with COVID, you would probably assume that most everybody's statement this year is about the obstacle of COVID. And so, standing out, I think, I think it's hit or miss. I think you really have to pay attention to the institute that you're writing for in order to stand out. If you're writing to a Christian private college, then I think you should talk about your mission trip and the experiences from that. And so I tend to disagree, because I don't think that there's really anything that you should hold back from when you're trying to let institutions know who you are as a person.
Cool. Okay, no, that's good to know. And,
Yeah.
I think too, everybody takes different takeaways
Mhm.
from those experiences. So, yeah, I mean, to be able to talk about those and get somebody else excited about it and, really let them into your life sounds like it's going to be important.
Mhm.
Mhm. Okay. What other tidbits do we need to know that are going to help families help their student? Anything you can think of?
Yeah, so I would say have your students write down a list of possible needs that they have. So, knowing, for example, like your child has a need to be challenged and supported, that's really important in reflecting or coming away with some self-awareness that would help them answer these questions, right? Have your child write down their skills. So an example of that would be maybe your student has the ability to communicate well with others. That's a fantastic skill and something that universities really look for. And so helping them list out what their skills are, what their personal interests are, what their personal values are, and also what their hopes and dreams are for the future, and have them really start reflecting and being really self-aware about kind of these big broad topics that they might get asked, so that they can be prepared to sit down and write a really good personal statement.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'll tell you, so one way that I can help students with that process is I do have a class coming up in a couple of weeks, a group class called Pick the Right Major. And within that class, we do a deep dive into strengths and get the students really comfortable about talking about what's so great about them and what they bring to the world, which I think sounds like it'd be a great preparation for writing this personal statement. So if you're interested in that, you can go to my website, www.kristenclark.com. It's scrolling across the bottom of our screen, and sign them up. It's a 6-week course, and I limit it to 10 students so that they can get the maximum amount of help from me and really dig into their strengths. So, Anna, any parting words or that we need to consider, or how can we help parents?
Yeah, so I would just say, especially if you have a student who is currently a junior, that around April or May would be a really great time to start planning out your personal statements for college application season starting as early as August of 2021. That way, everything is ready to go. If you are interested in putting together an application in the Common App, you can just Google Common Application and you will be guided to create a username and password for the whole Common Application account. And it gives you the ability to kind of search through the Common App and what specific colleges, universities are inside that Common Application platform to see if that's something that you would be interested in doing. Usually the new Common Application questions will come out during this summer, so you can be prepared.
Okay, I'm putting this in the chat. So you said for juniors, they need to start thinking about the personal statement now, but it's going to be, you said May. What's the significance of May?
Yeah, so I just think it's a really great time. The school year has ended or is ending, so they have a good amount of reflection that can happen. Reflecting on the school year, reflecting on how they've grown, reflecting on what those challenges were that they can then take in and start using or thinking about prompts towards a college essay. So those Common Application questions or statements will come out in June or July. That way they will be ready to go and have some examples for these 7 prompts that will be coming out.
Got it. Will come out. And do the questions change from year to year?
They do change. But they're all in that same style that I had read, broad, really digging into a student's identity, and really digging into how they overcame obstacles.
Great. Okay. And as Anna had promised, we will put the Common App questions into the chat on Facebook. So if you're interested in taking a look at those, you can always start prepping on those. And as you said, the questions will be similar enough that your answers will be covered. So great. All right. Thank you, Anna, and thanks so much for joining us today.
Yep, thank you.